Hi, this is John Delancey, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Today on episode 72 of the Cinema Geeks,
we discuss the casting news for The Fantastic Beasts and Assassin's Creed.
We talk about the newest Disney princess.
We react to all the new plans from Marvel and Michael Bay.
And in our main attraction, we attempt to create the best decade ever.
All that and more coming up on episode 72 with the Cinema Geeks.
That's right, it's episode 72 of the Cinema Geeks, and I am one of your Cinema Geeks, the Optimus Solo. Joining me, as you heard, is Movie Revolt Dan. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. And also, Hard Candy Mandy. Hello.
What's up?
Not much. Before we get going, Dan, how's your week been?
Well, I've had a pretty crappy computer week, which is, for those wondering why there was not both Talking in Circles and Cinema Geeks podcast last week. Hopefully, though, you'll be getting a double dose next week of Cinema Geeks. So by the time this after this drops, most likely we'll be getting the finishing of the Quentin Tarantino retrospective. But I had some computer problems, so things went a lot of many hours of podcasting and many hours of editing kind of went down the tubes. So.
And then people don't know that, behind the scenes, I guess, or as Troop Airmaster would say, inside baseball, that we kind of split our editing duties. So I do the editing on most of the main shows, and Dan does the editing on most of the retrospectives, etc. So every time you see a delay, it's because one of us has had computer issues, because we're both using fossils for computers, I think.
Yeah, mine's steam-powered, so I just had to get some more coal. So.
But, Amanda, how's your week been going?
Well, I've been sick as crap, so not so great.
All right, fantastic. I guess the biggest highlight for me, let's do what In Session does and piss everybody off by talking about sports.
Oh, God.
But it's a very exciting time because the Cubs are kicking ass and taking names. Get actually a couple days off so they can set their rotation, and I don't even know who won today's game, but they're awaiting the Mets or the Dodgers, and I'm sure that's over by now, but I don't know who it is. So Saturday we get game one, and Cubs fans like to get super excited and then get their hearts broken and all kinds of stuff. So I don't know how that's going to happen this year, but I am braced for it. We've been to the theater a few times. We'll be talking about that. I got to mention, I wanted to bring this up because I have the whole movie pass thing that a lot of other movie podcasters have talked about here and there. And for those of you that don't know, that's a subscription service basically that you pay X number of dollars a month, and then you can go to as many movies as you want, but you can only go to one every 24 hours. It's supposed to be 24 hours, but we went 23 hours apart this last week and it let us, so it must not be too strict on that. But I gotta say, I really like this deal because I'm the only one that has it. Amanda doesn't have the movie pass, and it's working out to our benefit because for some reason movie pass gives me credit for, instead of just like an entry ticket to the movie, they give me basically $10 and I don't know what it is, 53 cents or 63 cents or something. And our theater doesn't charge that much. So nice. What happens is we select two tickets, and then I swipe the movie pass, and it just takes $10 off. And like this last week, we went to a movie, and Amanda's movie ticket was $4.
Perfect.
So
they might have thought I was a little kid, though.
So not only am I getting not the free movies, but basically, I guess, the free movies, if you're not counting the monthly payment, but then Amanda's getting like half-price movies. So I guess we're beating the system, but nobody tell them that, please. So we can continue to do that as long as possible. All right, like we do every week, we'll start with the box office. A couple weeks back when we had our last episode, we had a couple interesting predictions. Mine we'll start with because I was wrong. And my prediction was that as the Rotten Tomatoes scores started for Crimson Peak and Bridge of Spies, that Crimson Peak would be the better reviewed film. And I should say I'm happy that I'm wrong, because I do have Mr. Spielberg in the Fantasy Film League, and so far it's getting a lot of praise, and right now Crimson Peak is sitting at a 67%, and Bridge of Spies is at a 92%. So I did not expect that to go over as well, and I think even some of the main critics, I think Roper, said that he would be shocked if it's not in the conversation or in the announcements when the best pictures get announced later on. So I was wrong, but I'm glad I'm wrong because I've been trying to champion, I guess, Bridge of Spies the whole year for a couple different reasons. Dan, you were much better in your predictions last week. You said that The Martian was going to open up big time. I think you said it was going to be over 50 million, but it was not going to be Gravity. I don't know how...
Yes, I said it would be over 50 million, but less than 55 million, and so I was right in the right range. So it did really well, but it didn't quite beat Gravity's record, which I was happy to be right about.
I feel like you could have put it down to the $1,000 mark, and I think you were going to be right that time. That's how close you were to like pinpointing exactly how much it made. So very impressive with that prediction. Coming up for this week, we got a couple major releases that are going to be coming out. We have the two that I just mentioned in Crimson Peak and Bridge of Spies. And we also have, as far as theater releases, Goosebumps being brought out there. So, Dan, what are you thinking as far as a prediction for next week?
I'm going to actually try to do the top three and see how I can do with this, because we got a lot coming out, and Bridge of Spies is probably really notable, but I'm actually thinking, there hasn't really been a family film coming out. Goosebumps has I don't know, a lot of people from the 90s know the Goosebumps, love the Goosebumps, so I'm actually going to say that Goosebumps comes in at number 1 this weekend. I'm thinking, actually, that The Martian, that it's going to drop to number 2, and then I'll go Bridge of Spies number 3, and then for a kicker, I'll say Crimson Peak 4. So...
Man, add in a little extra at the end. That can come back to bite you sometimes.
Yeah.
But all right, interesting predictions there. I like the idea with the family movie kind of outscoring those. It's hard to predict the audience for Bridge of Spies and Crimson Peak as far as how much they'll come out, at least for the first week. I think Bridge of Spies is one of those that it has more of a slow build.
I feel like The Martian, the Bridge of Spies, and Crimson Peak are kind of going at similar audiences somewhat.
Right.
I mean, so I think that will kind of split them, which Goosebumps, it's the only thing. I mean, there's Hotel Transylvania, but that's already been out for a while. I feel like Goosebumps is it's going to stand out more, so that's why I think it has the best shot at number 1.
All right, Amanda, what do you got for next week?
Well, I also want to do the top 3. It's going to be different than Dan. I'm going to say Martian, number 1, Crimson Peak at number 2, and Goosebumps at number 3.
So, Martian, Crimson Peak, and Goosebumps.
Yep.
All right. Let's be boring and do something similar. I'm not going to go with the order of the top 3 at the box office. I am only going to predict what order the 3 new films will land in. And what I mean by that is, out of the 3 new films, which one will score the most, and the second most, and the third most at the box office. So that way I can avoid trying to lump Martian into it. See how I'm cheating there? And I will go with very similar to Dan's, but very similar but slightly different, because that's a thing. I'll go with Goosebumps at number 1, Crimson Peak at number 2, and Bridge of Spies at number 3. That's just the order that those 3 will finish. There could be stuff in between them or on top of them, etc. So Goosebumps, Crimson Peak, and then Bridge of Spies. So we'll see which one of us is closer. Last time we all tried to do something like this, we were all miserably wrong. So we can hope for better results this next time.
I like to think we were happily wrong, but, whatever.
I like that. I like that thought there. As far as what movies are scoring the best in the box office right now, as far as this last weekend, obviously The Martian, once again, has had some good weeks there. So we got Martian at number 1. We have Hotel Transylvania 2 at number 2. Staying right where it was. The new one, Pan, opens up at number 3, and then The Intern stays at number 4, and Sicario drops from number 3 to number 5. Any surprises as far as Pan, The Martian, or anything else, Dan, as far as the results go so far?
I am surprised that the Pan was such a miserable flop that it was. I know it was not really reviewed very well, but I felt like ads were everywhere. Hugh Jackman might bring people in, but yeah, I didn't think it'd do that bad. $15 million with a $150 million budget, so I don't know who has Hugh Jackman. I think I do.
You do.
Son of a... yeah. Man, fantasy football is going well, though, at least, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I was surprised at how bad it did. I figured at least it's not a movie that's aimed at us, so I thought, like you're saying with Goosebumps, there hasn't been a lot of more like family-friendly stuff lately, outside of, like you said, Hotel Transylvania 2. So I thought there might be an audience for this as far as the younger crowd, family crowd, etc., but they did not turn out for this, and they're probably wise not to have, as we'll get into probably a tiny bit later on, because Amanda and I have seen this one. But yeah, I was surprised at how far that one fell, and it's got a ways to try to get to its $150 million budget. The Martian and Hotel Transylvania 2 both have broken the 100 million mark, so I think everybody involved with The Martian should be pretty happy with how that's gone. Amanda, anything surprising about the box office from this last week?
Only the fact that the Intern is beating out Sicario right now.
Barely. Barely as far as the week, but as far as total gross, yeah, it's almost doubled it. I think that just has to do with the demographic as far as, comedies like that are going to play a little bit better to a wider range of audiences. So, as far as the Rotten Tomatoes for these movies, you got some good things to go see right now, folks, if you're wanting to go to the theater. So you got a lot of stuff that's getting reviewed pretty darn well, and The Martian is one of those at 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. You also have Sicario at 93%, The Walk at 84%, Black Mass 76, The Intern 60, even Everest, even though we didn't necessarily love it, is reviewed at 72. So you got a lot of stuff. Steve Jobs might be trickling into a few theaters around you here pretty soon. That's at 83%. So the only ones you really have to watch out for is Pan, which is currently at a 26%. And if you're a big fan of The Perfect Guy, I would probably, or that type of a film, that's at 19%. So don't get your hopes up there. But Dan, it's definitely a sign of how things have changed here in the 3 weeks.
I know. I was thinking about it like last month, where it was like, the big movie this weekend is The Visit or something like that. So
right, it was like 3 weeks in a row where it was like The War Room, Perfect Guy, and some other thing that I'd never heard of.
Every single movie was like 30% at Rotten Tomatoes. So
yeah, so it's definitely a sign of the fall coming and all the good movies starting to trickle out. So definitely try to get to the theater this weekend if you can, because there's a lot of choices for you. That's including all those new ones that we talked about that are also getting really high scores on Rotten Tomatoes. So let's get into the news and talk about what's new and exciting in the movie world. We've got a couple different things. We're going to hit all kinds of our standard topics except for Star Wars. We're going to keep Star Wars out of it this time. It's almost like Star Wars was in the news every week for us for like a year, and now that we're 63 days or so away from The Force Awakens, it seems like everybody's calmed down on the news, and now we're just anticipating. So, starting with something that I'm interested to see if you guys have any opinions on, because I am obviously the ignorant one when it comes to comic book stuff. But Marvel and Fox are going to be teaming up, not necessarily for a movie-related thing, but because obviously Marvel has a huge movie presence, thought it was somewhat interesting that they're kind of uniting forces for some X-Men spin-off shows revolving around characters Hellfire and Legion. Dan, do you know anything about the Hellfire Club comics or...
Yeah, Hellfire Club is kind of, if you saw X-Men First Class, you saw the Hellfire Club with Sebastian Shaw, who was played by Kevin Bacon, Emma Frost, played by Jessica Jones. They're kind of like this, they live in, the Victorian area, I believe, or what have you, and they're, very, they present themselves as high esteemed people with, like, wearing the classic clothing and things like that. In the movie, they were more like 60s styles. It was almost like a play on the Playboy Club of the time. So that's kind of like their gimmick. A lot of their characters are named after chess pieces. There's like the White Queen, the Black King, and Black Knight, and stuff like that. So it's that's kind of their gimmick per se. So they're villains. So I'm curious to see how that works. And Legion, he's actually the son of Charles Xavier, who, honestly, a character I'm not the biggest fan of. He's got weird, wonky hair, but really, honestly, odd to see that those are the directions they're going for TV shows. I can kind of see the Hellfire, because it's like, mutants in Mad Men, or Mad Men with mutants. The Legion one, I don't know. I don't see where they're going with that.
And I don't see it listing necessarily an actual channel destination for the Hellfire Club one, but for Legion it says that the pilot has been ordered by FX. So looks like that one will be coming to FX with Fargo creator Noah Hawley attached to write and produce. Amanda, any familiarity with either of these?
Just the Hellfire Club stuff from what I've seen in First Class, but that's it. But
all right, so if you're a fan of X-Men characters, then you should be in line for some TV shows. I mean, heck, we got TV shows for all kinds of other comic book characters right now, so why not have the X-Men join the club? We talked about plans, and we're going to have a string of news stories here about different people's plans for the upcoming year. So let's start with Universal. And that was the kind of shift that we saw with Universal and Warner Brothers involving the property of King Kong and Godzilla. So what we're going to get here is we're going to get an actual trilogy starting in 2017, which we've already known about, which is Kong Skull Island. And then the next year, Godzilla 2. And then obviously the predictable trilogy third film, which would be Godzilla versus Kong, which is going to be due out in 2020. And they've already talked about how Mothra, Rodan, and a bunch of other famous, iconic monster characters are going to be involved in those films. Dan, any interest in this, or?
I don't know, honestly, because I know we have this going on. We talked about it, too, a while ago with the Rampage movie with The Rock, and that.
Right.
I don't know. It could be cool. It could be fun, I guess, but... how can you, if they're going to do King Kong and Godzilla, they have to make King Kong a lot bigger, or it's going to be a really short movie, because, I mean, I guess it's weird that you're seeing this push forward, but Pacific Rim is not being pushed forward. I feel like, you'd have a better story there, potentially, with Pacific Rim, but what are you going to do? So, I mean, I'd probably see it, but honestly, I not being the hugest Godzilla fan, I'm not super psyched for any of this news.
I feel like, we talk a lot about how for a bunch of these team-up type things or culmination events that we always want to see the build-up. We want to see the individual stories. We want the characters to be built up. I feel like this is one example where that's not necessary. Like, just go straight to Godzilla versus King Kong. Like... I get the introduction to the Kong character in this version, but we can skip Godzilla 2, we can skip some of that, just go straight to the whole party, Godzilla, King Kong, Mothra, Rodan, let's just throw them all together. I don't know if I'll have the patience to sit through 3 movies and then still be excited for the 2020 film.
Yeah, I'm not very super excited for a movie that has Moth in the title.
No?
No. And his greatest enemy, Light. Yeah, no.
His greatest enemy, any type of indirect contact from anything, just flattens. But yes, I mean, I guess some people might be excited, but I'm not one of those. Amanda, what do you think about King Kong, Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, all of them coming together in 3 more films?
Why 3 films? I don't get it. Just condense it down to 1. I don't give a shit. I did like the Matthew Broderick fucking Godzilla. I did not see the newer Godzilla. I don't care to see it. If there's going to be a bunch of craziness happening in these movies with all these old school, what do you want to call them? His little arch enemies or whatever, the other monsters he's finna fight, then I might have to get down on it just to give it a try.
All right. Good. Let's just get all of the other plans out of the way, because I think that's been beat to death by some people. But obviously Marvel has had some big news in the last little bit about how they're shifting plans for Phase 3. Dan, I don't know how much you've talked about this with other people, but the biggest thing here is that they're trying to squeeze in, obviously, a Ant-Man sequel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, which would push Captain Marvel back to 2019. I guess the biggest thing I'm coming away with here is that Marvel has 13 movies scheduled to come out between now and 2020.
Yeah, and I've heard there's some rumors that some movies might get canceled, most notably the Inhumans. And I heard for different reasons, partially maybe because the Inhumans are becoming more and more a part of Marvel, and they maybe don't feel like they can wait, so maybe they'll go a different direction. I have a theory that maybe we'll see an Inhumans TV show or like a spin-off within Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I do wonder if we'll see some more shifts. So I do feel like they just throw out movies, like, we're going to make a movie these years, and then we'll figure it out later. It's like, just, I don't know. They just, like, keep...
We're going to throw stuff out there to see what sticks and what people get excited about.
Exactly. Like, we're going to double down. It's like, we didn't even deal yet. You can't do that. Give us some time.
There's no cards on the table.
Yeah.
But what about just the idea of Ant-Man having a sequel? Do you think that's something that you can get behind?
Oh yeah, I did like Ant-Man, so I'm all up for a sequel, and I'm kind of glad to see the Wasp in there. So I'm excited for it, just for sure.
Yeah, I'm intrigued definitely because of the combination with the Wasp, obviously as more of a central character in that. So I'm down for that. I don't know. Like I said, I'm trying not to keep too much as far as what's happening 3, 4, 5 years from now in these big type of deliberations and all this type of stuff, because so much of it is going to change, like we see over and over again in the Marvel world, in the DC world, etc. So I'll just wait till it's that year, and when I have to decide what I'm most anticipated for and what's going to make money, and then I'll start thinking about it. Amanda, what about you? Any interest or excitement for Ant-Man sequel?
I really get excited about any comic book superhero movies. So I'm not really too picky on that until I've seen it. I mean, I'll know if I like it when I see it.
All right. And the last, as far as the big planning process goes, and Dan, I know you probably already know which one we're talking about, but if I was to tell you that, quote, 9 of the most creative writers around, including the man behind A Beautiful Mind, sat together in a room over a 3-month period of time to plan a movie franchise, is Transformers the first thing that comes to your mind?
No, because planning in Transformers movies is not something I kind of put together.
So yeah, if you guys haven't been paying attention, they've decided to plot out the next 10 years of Transformers films. This is 9 different writers that apparently shot ideas off of each other for 3 months, and now they've got the next 10 years of Transformers film plotted out, and that's going to start next year with Transformers 5, with Michael Bay returning as director, which the movie will then be released in 2017. Dan, is this the worst movie news ever?
My question is, when they say plan out these movies, is it let's plan how we're going to use this money that we're going to get to buy small islands or something like that? Is that really the planning that's going on? Is it really in reference to the movies, or is it reference to that? Yeah, I when it comes to news like this, I kind of just take it with a grain of salt, because I feel like you hear we're planning, years in advance, but it never ends up happening. Like, look at something like After Earth, and they had all these ideas for creating this universe and this other stuff that was going to happen, and never did. So, I mean, Transformers, it may happen because those movies make a ton of cash, but right. I don't know. I guess I'm like, we already have 4 bad Transformers films. What are you going to do? Get 4 more? It's like, you can't,
Like, I would get excited if this was a completely different group outside of Michael Bay and outside of the companies that have been involved with this. If it was someone else that somehow all of a sudden had the rights and they're like, look, we're going to do this. We already know it's going to make a lot of money, so we got this, and we're going to actually plan it out and put some thought into it. But you can't convince me that the people behind these last 4 movies all of a sudden are going to put some actual time and thought into this.
I just don't know what more you can do with the Transformers. That they've destroyed so many cities. I mean, maybe if they go into space or something like that, that'd be good.
That's the only thing that could happen, is if they abandon Earth altogether and never came back. Just have the rest in space.
Yeah.
But Amanda, what do you think? You ready for 10 more years of Transformers movies?
I can't grasp 10 years of Transformers movies. I can't take it.
It'll be worth it if it supplies us with 10 more years of podcast gems of, as far as JD and Tim for first time watchers going at it. If we got 10 more episodes where they fight each other, then that would make it worth it, I guess. But this is stupid. So moving on, Dan, Jennifer Lawrence making some career decisions here. I want to know if you think it's a wise choice or not, because she has apparently dropped out of Richard Linklater's next film and is instead going to team up with Darren Aronofsky in his next indie film. I don't know anything about the films that she's either, joining or abandoning. She's also departing another film from Jeanette Wall's memoir, The Glass Castle, so she must be really on board for this Aronofsky film. But do you think it's an interesting choice going from, Linklater's a hot name out there right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know if I could see Jennifer Lawrence in a Linklater film, though, so maybe it's a good choice.
Yeah, it's hard to say, too, without knowing what exactly the films are about or what she knows as far as maybe some of the ideas or the script.
And it could be for a variety of different reasons. It could be like the part didn't work out, scheduling. So, hey, it all good for her, I guess. I don't know. I heard in her seeing an Aronofsky film. He's done some crazy things, so I guess I don't know. I am glad though that in hindsight, or the general idea of this is that she's going and getting with good directors. So I think that that's a plus.
Right. Have you seen Black Swan, Amanda?
No.
Okay, I have not either. That's one I have to catch up with. It's a blind spot.
With Natalie Portman?
Yes.
Yep, that needs to be added to the list of things I need to see because I need to catch up with some of his other work. So, interesting move for Jennifer Lawrence, though. It did make the headlines this week. And then I got a couple news items here that I know Amanda is going to enjoy here. And these have to do with casting, like we talked about in the teaser at the beginning, Amanda. Some new names attached to the Harry Potter spin-off film, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. So first, Jon Voight, all right, and
He's Jolie's dad.
And Humans, I don't know if I'm going to say that right, Gemma Chan, and Selma's Carmen Ejogo. Now I'd have to see some pictures of those two individuals to know, but Jon Voight, I guess, is the biggest name there. And then along with that, like within days of that, came the news that Ron Perlman is going to play a goblin in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Now that might just be in voice-over work because most of the goblins that we've seen so far in that franchise are not very large, so I don't know if he's actually going to be playing, in person, but it's at least lending the voice to.
The goblins, like the little freaking short dudes, he's got to be voice then.
So, what do you think? Ron Perlman, Jon Voight adding to the list of...
Those are some legit names, I think. I think they're tacking on some serious casting here.
Can you be more excited for this film or not?
I haven't let myself get too excited because it's still a ways out, right?
Yeah.
So I need to kind of...
About a year.
Keep my shit on lock until I'm ready to absolutely lose my shit.
Is this an automatic pick for one of your most anticipated films of 2016?
Yes.
Dan, how's this one rising or falling in your anticipation level?
It doesn't, honestly, that news hasn't affected a great deal. I do like Ron Perlman, and it's good to see that, but I feel like I'm pretty excited for it to begin with, so unless something is completely out of left field, like Larry the Cable Guy is the star of it or something like that, I think I'll be
still alive.
It's a form of being alive, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are somewhat anticipating what exactly is going to happen with that film. Also, some casting news as far as Assassin's Creed and its attempt to be that video game film that actually works. And the two names that are being added, we already had, obviously, Mr. Michael Fassbender and Marion Cotillard, and now we are adding in Brendan Gleeson to play Michael Fassbender's father, as well as Jeremy Irons to play her father. So, Dan, does that raise the stakes for Assassin's Creed?
That's pretty. Brendan Gleeson is Michael Fassbender's father. Interesting. I wonder how big of a role that's going to be in honesty, but that's pretty good casting. I got a lot, and Jeremy Irons in a movie with Assassin's Creed does feel like it's that's like a role he's born to play. So I'm liking it. I'm liking what they're doing.
I think
so. Michael Fassbender's playing Connor.
I don't know anybody. I don't know.
He's playing the main guy, whatever his name is, the dude that's an assassin with a creed.
Yeah, he's got a creed. And he's an assassin.
Okay.
If I were to throw out those four names, I don't think most people would predict that that's a video game film.
Yeah, it's better than the cast for Super Mario Brothers.
So, Amanda?
I considered that for my 90s.
Amanda, this one's also coming out in 2016. So have we talked about 2 in a row that are automatic top 10s for you as far as most anticipated?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I'm currently stuck in Assassin's Creed 3, though. Just busting that out there. If anybody can help me finish this game, please help. It is so long.
The video game guru of the two of us is definitely Amanda. All right, so the last news story for today, Thor 3 scores an unexpected director, Dan, and we're talking about, and Amanda, you might find this interesting too, the director who did What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, what?
And some episodes of Flight of the Conchords. Dan, would you expect this name to be connected to Thor 3?
When it comes to Marvel, yes, because I feel like they just get whoever. And honestly, when it comes to Marvel and directors, it's the name now, but you don't know what's going to be the name in like a month or two. So, yeah, right. I feel like, they've got to the point where they like, we've mentioned, they just have a machine that they have going. They get a guy to kind of just wrangle it all, guy or girl to bring it all together. And, that director really doesn't have a lot to do. Not to disparage them, but it's, they're kind of just really there to just follow through with what Marvel wants the movie to be.
Right. Man, I mean, it's just weird to see, because you do still get some hints of a certain director style a lot of times in some of these, at least, even if they don't have a lot of, like, creative control.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you see that with, like, Iron Man 3 with Shane Black, or,
Right.
Captain America First Avenger with Justin. So I think you're correct, but
I'm just looking for how some of the style that this director has been known for would somehow creep into it. And the only thing I can think of is I have a feeling they could do some pretty cool stuff with Loki, but I don't know. I'm intrigued just to see what, if any, aspects of their kind of personal style would be able to creep into this film. But Amanda, what do you think? You loved What We Do in the Shadows.
Absolutely love that movie.
So the director from that doing a superhero film, is he going to have much? Is he going to be able to infuse any of his style, or is he going to be kind of controlled by the powers that be?
I couldn't tell you. Seeing one movie this guy's done, I haven't seen any Flight of the Conchords, so I don't know how that's going to translate into such a big blockbuster.
We'll have to wait and see. There's a couple other links to some other stories that we didn't get to on the website, so be sure to check those out and let us know what you think about those. And we're going to bypass most of the trailer talk because we're going to have probably a pretty extended main attraction here that we want to save some time for that we haven't really told you too much about yet. But before we get that, Dan, there were some trailers that were released. We had a couple of big ones. Did you want to talk about those?
Yeah, I could talk about one in particular, which is Hail Caesar. Which is the Coen Brothers' newest movie coming out next year, and it looks really intriguing. It's a period piece like taking place during like the Hollywood boom. I don't want to get the years wrong, but I want to say the 50s or 60s era. It's got it's a huge cast. I mean, a lot of the classic Coen Brothers people from like George Clooney, Frances McDermott, Scarlett Johansson. It's combination comedy, musical. It's very Coen Brothers. Like if I showed you the trailer, you'd be like, "That's probably a Coen Brothers movie," but it's very epic. It looks a little bit more, with Inside Llewyn Davis, which is a little bit more dramatic. This one's a little bit more upbeat per se. I'm trying to think of what it would be linked to. And it almost feels more like in the vein of like Burn After Reading, kind of like that type of comedy,
okay.
But a little bit more epic, like it, because there looks to be musical numbers. It's like the old style of the 1950s. But I'm really looking forward to it. I'm a huge Coen Brothers fan. They can kind of do no wrong for the most part. So it's looking good. And I don't know when it's coming out next year, but it says next year. So if it's already seeing a trailer, I wonder if it will get like like similar to last year when we got Grand Budapest Hotel early on. Hopefully,
it's set to release in February,
which is scary because in a way, but maybe it's with the Coen Brothers, I feel like maybe they don't really care when their movies are released. Maybe I don't know, but I'm really looking forward to that. So
that is a star-studded cast. That's for sure.
I do wonder if it's too big for its own good. That's a possibility, but I
want to know if this one item is true in the cast, which says that Dolph Lundgren as a Soviet submarine commander.
I don't remember seeing that in the trailer, but I don't know. and
that.
Yeah, so the other one I saw was a Bone Tomahawk, is the name of the movie, or something.
Okay. And
it's crazy that this year we're getting more Westerns than superhero films, because we have this, we have Hateful Eight, we have It's Little West, and we have a few other Westerns coming out, but this looks like really old school, like violent Western. Like it looks and each of these Westerns are very different from one another. This one, Kurt Russell being a badass, it looks really intriguing, like very old school, or almost, I don't know, it's hard to really place it. It's not like any of the other ones, so more bare bones type of gritty type of Western that I think could be quite good. So it's not what I expected, because I remember hearing stuff about it early in the year. I think it would be more like violent, over the top. It does seem like it's going to be violent, but it's not going to be as graphic, or at least, it's hard to say because it's only a trailer, but it doesn't seem like it's much more serious than I thought it was going to be.
This one's had my interest from the first time I kind of read a little bit about it, or saw little bits about it. But it was one of those, like you said, it's kind of hard to place, and it's hard to say exactly how it's going to be. But this one's had my interest from the beginning, so I'll be interested to see what it kind of turns out to be. There's also trailers up there for Man Up, The Forest, 999, Experimenter, Shelter, Big Stone Gap, Race, and Lost in the Sun. So check all those out. Let us know which ones you're excited for, which ones you're not. But they're all up on the episode post on the website, so definitely take a look at that. We're going to take a quick break, but you don't want to leave us right now. You don't want to abandon us, because we're about to get to a main attraction that I think is going to be a lot of fun, and hopefully it's going to be as fun to listen to as it is to actually try to accomplish. Although I think there's going to be some frustrations and some agonizing, at least from one party involved.
I might not survive this.
So stick with us, because after the break, we're going to play a new game called Best Decade Ever.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Greg.
This is Chuck.
And this is Dan. And we are Talking in Circles.
Because the world needs another podcast, we are here as Geekcast Radio's newest edition.
And as the title says, each week we get lost in conversation about a wide range of topics, including movies, comics, games, art, TV, and even occasionally sports.
We play games and discuss pivotal topics like who would win in a fight, the Kool-Aid Man or Tony the Tiger, and examine the hot-button issues of the world of geekdom.
We keep things fresh by taking timeless topics in new directions.
We are simply three friends having a fun time talking about life's most fascinating foibles.
Stay connected with us every Tuesday on iTunes or at geekcastradio.com.
Hey guys, it's Optimus Solo and
Hard Candy Mandy.
And we just wanted to let you guys know about another podcast out there that we both think you would all enjoy.
It's one of both of our favorite shows to listen to, and it's none other than the True Bromance Podcast.
True Bromance is a movie podcast hosted by longtime friends Hyro and Barry, and if you like to smile, laugh, and just be genuinely entertained while listening to movie talk, then this is definitely the right show for you.
Each week, the guys break down a recently released movie, and not only do they tie in the movie that week to the beers that they are drinking during the show,
but they also tie it into a real fun top and bottom 5 list associated with that movie.
It's a blast hearing both sides of these lists, and it definitely makes them unique amongst all other movie review podcasts.
So we definitely want to recommend all of you guys to go check out their show. Just search out the True Bromance Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and all other podcast platforms. And if you listen via iTunes, do us a favor and leave them a 5-star review. And don't forget to let them know that the Cinema Geeks sent you.
Now back to the show. Do you see how your patience paid off?
All right, thanks for sticking with us. As I said, this is the main attraction, and I'm glad you stuck with us through that break, because I think this is going to be some fun. We're playing a new game called The Best Decade Ever, and this is how it's going to work. Basically, we're going to be conducting a draft-like style game here, in which Dan, Amanda, and myself will alternate in turns of picking. And what we'll be doing is we'll be picking films. We're going to be trying to create the best decade ever. For this episode, we're going to be dealing with the 1990s. So we're going to go straight through from 1990 all the way to 1999, all 10 years. And each year, we're each going to be able to pick one film. So for 1990, we all get a one pick, and then the same for 91, 92, etc. A couple different little caveats here, though, that are going to make it interesting. Number one, Once a film has been picked, the other two people cannot pick that film for that year, so it's off the board. Number 2, we have criteria that our roster has to fill. So you have to have a film from 10 different genres, and we've outlined those as the following. You're going to have a comedy, you're going to have an action-adventure, you're going to have a science fiction or fantasy, you're going to have a drama film, a horror film, an animated film, a family-friendly film, a romantic comedy, an epic or historical film, and then a police, crime, gangster type film. So you're going to have one for every genre. So it's going to make things tricky as we go through, and we're going to get down to 1999. We're all going to have one genre to pick, and hopefully we still have some films that we want for our team. And then once we're done drafting our best decade ever, we will be putting these up for vote on the website, just like we've been doing with a lot of the other games, and you're going to be able to pick which person created the best decade. Any questions from the panel? Amanda, are you ready to go, or are you want any last-minute things you need clarified?
I am not too prepared for this. I don't feel like I am all the way ready, because this is probably the hardest challenge you have ever thrown me into. I love the 90s.
Would you say the 90s is your favorite decade of film?
Yes, and that is going to show, you're going to hear all the paper shuffling, because I have way too many movies, especially later on in the decade. So this is going to be really hard for me to pick, and how dare you make me pick from these movies.
All right, Dan, any questions or thoughts before we start?
No, I'm good. I'm a little scared. I'm a little worried. But,
I'm hoping this is not as nerve-wracking as the actual fantasy film draft was. But then I was trying to shuffle like 12 different people's teams at the same time. So this one I only have to worry about my own and what ones you guys are knocking off the list. So we will start in chronological order. So we're going to be starting with 1990. We're going to have a random draw here to see who goes first, and then each subsequent round that will rotate as far as who gets the first pick. All right, so the person that will be picking first for 1990 is Movie Revolt Dan. Dan, you get the first pick of the whole thing. Wow. So I'll give you a second to think about it as I pick who's going to be picking second. Who's picking second is myself, which means, Amanda, you will have the third pick in the first round. All right, so I will try to keep track of that as Dan decides what he's going to be doing.
So yeah, it's kind of hard though the one thing to consider, and that we should, is the fact that we're also doing genres. So when you look through these years, certain genres are better represented than others, and someone's like, there's a movie that I'm like, 1990 movie I think is unquestionably the best film, but then it's like, well, that genre's pretty stacked for the decade, and there's other genres that, so you have a lot to consider, because maybe there's a genre that stinks after 1993, so you have to get it now. So there's a lot of challenges here. So I debated about not going with this one, with being first pick, but I feel like I would be lying to myself. I'll figure things out otherwise, and I'm going to go with Goodfellas as my first pick. Yeah, I have to. I know it's an obvious choice, but it's one of my all-time favorites, so I'm going to go with that, which will take it out of my crime genre, so I have that one taken care of. So, but there's a lot of great crime films still left, so it's I debated about waiting on it, but I would it'd be like not choosing like Adrian Peterson #1 when it was like in his prime. So I'll stick with Goodfellas.
Man. All right, so. Yeah, and we all apologize right up front if you hear any papers, pens, or anything like that as we try to shuffle around things, because it's a lot.
8 freaking pages.
Man, all right. Goodfellas is off the board. That was definitely my #1 pick for 1990 as well. I will have to figure this out real quick, and I think I'm going to do something that I feel like, and I think, Dan, you shared the same sentiment, and kind of I was talking off air, that it's going to be easier, at least for you and I, to find some more of the family-friendly films at the beginning of the decade, and a little harder as we get going, and that might have something to do with our age, and that we were more in tune with some of those films in the early 90s than we were later in the 90s. So I think I'm probably going to be going that route, and I had one picked out, but I'm going to go with my second choice instead for 1990. I'm going to go with a family-friendly film and a personal favorite. Maybe not the best reviewed or critically acclaimed film, and I guess I'll lose some cinephile points here, but I'm going to go with the original live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film.
See, I consider that. I thought you were going to go with a different family-friendly film, but not a bad choice. Not a bad choice.
Yeah, I had another one with that one. I actually had about 3 for this year alone that were all family-friendly ones, but I'm going to go with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because why not? And I can't deny my love for that film, and it's probably one of the first films ever that I could quote like non-stop. So, Amanda, you can't pick Goodfellas, you can't pick Turtles. What are you going to go with?
I think I'm going to do my romantic comedy choice and go Pretty Woman.
See, that's actually the movie I was thinking about choosing, but I'm like, cannot live that down, and I'm Pretty Woman, not Goodfellas.
Man, all right. So we picked 3 good films from 1990. Dan, I'm curious. What other family-friendly one did you think I might go with for that year?
Home Alone.
Yep, that was the other one I had at the top of my list. So it was a debate between the 2 of them. So nobody picks Home Alone for 90, but I think we got 3 good films off the board. So now we go to 1991. Amanda, you picked last in that round, which means that you will now get to pick first for 1991. So you have all the movies in the world from 1991 to choose from. Where are you going? You cannot pick a romantic comedy.
Okay, I'm going to get my animated selection in. I'm going to do Beauty and the Beast.
All right, first animated film off of the board with Beauty and the Beast. Definitely a pretty good selection if you're trying to come up with some best animated films from the decade, so you can't go wrong with Beauty and the Beast. That means, Dan, you have the next pick for 19.
All right, for my next one, see, this is a genre I didn't have a lot of choices for, and I was actually hoping I would get this one, and I don't know if it's a stretch, but I'm actually going to go horror for this genre. Horror.
Damn it. Damn it. I told Amanda beforehand, I'm like, if one of you steals my only horror film that I have written on my paper, I'm going to be struggling the rest of the way.
I apologize, because I'm right there with you, and I'm going to go with Silence of the Lambs.
I hate you.
I can think, there's another horror film that came out this year that's in 91 that I could recommend that you get.
Oh, man. I have a couple other maybes, but I was like, I'm such an ignorant person when it comes to the horror genre that I knew I was going to have to stretch somewhere to get one, and I think this definitely qualifies. So that's a great pick for your horror film. And I hate you.
Me?
No, Dan. I don't really, though. There's no hate here. All right, so Beauty and the Beast off and Silence of the Lambs off. Luckily, I had 4 movies starred for this year, so that's only 2 of them that are off the board, so I got to pick now. I'm either going comedy or my science fiction here. I think it's going to be easier to pick a comedy later on, so I will go ahead and knock off my science fiction / fantasy, and that will be with Terminator 2 Judgment Day. So I don't think you can go too much wrong with that as a science fiction film. Silence from the panel.
Sorry, that was actually, I was looking ahead, trying to find my next choice. Yeah, that's actually what I was going between. I was thinking either Silence of the Lambs or Terminator 2, but I think I actually was debating about putting it in action, actually. So.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That's probably what I should have done. I'll regret that later, because I definitely have a lot more science fiction choices than I do action. All right, so those are the 3 films for 91 off the board: Beauty and the Beast, Silence of the Lambs, and Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I do got to say I'm slightly bummed that one of my favorite comedies is not going to be on my list, which would be What About Bob?
I really wanted to put that on there too.
I just have faith that I'll be able to find a comedy later on that I like just about as much. So, all right, going on to 1992. That'll be my pick first, and then Amanda and Dan's first time going last. I had hardly anything written down on my list for 1992. I think it's, together with maybe one other year, I felt like it was just a weaker year in the decade, but I will go ahead and knock off my animated film for my list, and that's no surprise that it's going to be Aladdin. So I will take Aladdin for my animated film. Amanda, that means you are up next.
I think I'm going to go with my drama selection, and it's going to be The Bodyguard.
The Bodyguard. Did not have that one on my radar.
No. Yeah. I kind of thinking about going with animation, but actually one I'm waiting on because I think there's actually 90s was a pretty good year for animation, so I figure.
Well, and now you have the benefit that we have both already picked our animated film, so you have no fears of losing out yours whenever that might be. So, all right, Dan, where are you going to go then?
Man, this one I was debating. I'm not sure, but this is one where like the choice I want is not till later, but I don't know if it would be available because it's only one. So, but I think I'm going to go actually our epic historical and going the route of the Western, and it's won Best Picture that year, and I'm going to go with Unforgiven as my choice.
Unforgiven, definitely a critically acclaimed, big hit on a lot of people's top decade lists for the 90s, so you can't go wrong there. And it also gets could be considered a harder genre maybe for some off the board. I think some people like that genre more than others, obviously. All right, so that means we are to 1993, and that means, Dan, you are once again in the driver's seat for the first pick. Oh, man, I already know where this is going.
Yeah, I'm going to go with my family-friendly film. Actually, well, there's so many things to choose for, but I feel like this is there are two films here that are tugging at my heartstrings, two of my favorite films of all time. But one's science fiction, action, one's family-friendly. And after this, I don't have many family-friendly films that I can choose from, and I'm going to go with The Sandlot as my choice.
I am so glad I went family-friendly in the first round, because this was my last choice for family-friendly would have been Sandlot. So thank God I already have one, because otherwise I don't know what I would do from that point on. So Sandlot is a great pick, Dan. And now I'm really wishing that I would have picked Terminator as my action film. All right, I'm next for 1993. I can't get that film. I've already used that genre. I'm retarded.
You wanted Jurassic Park, didn't you?
I'm not saying anything. Man. The two films that I had starred for this year are Jurassic Park and Sandlot.
Sorry.
No, that was my fault.
Actually, I can go a different... Hold on.
No, you're fine. You're fine. All right, I have two backups. One that I super love, and I just don't know if it fits anywhere. I feel like this would get vetoed by the panel, but let me throw it out there and see what you guys say. Can I fit as far as epic / historic? That was part of it, and I think it has a bit of both. Does Tombstone work in that category?
Yeah, I had that because I have a Western as well.
Okay, so I am going with Tombstone then for my epic / historic film, and that is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I'm not upset. I'm not upset at all. All right, Amanda?
So that means I can have... Wait. So which genre... Is Jurassic Park considered the sci-fi then?
I had it both under science fiction and action. I feel like you could put it for either.
Yeah, I think you can put it either in action or in science fiction fantasy, or even as possibly, I guess, as an epic type film, but not really historical. So
I'm gonna go science fiction fantasy.
Okay.
Jurassic Park.
She's just shocked that she was going last and she somehow got Jurassic Park in this year.
I know. I thought about it, but yeah.
And I really wanted to do Demolition Man because I love that movie. I have so much fun with that movie, but I think that I'll get a better response in the polls from Jurassic Park than Demolition Man.
Yeah, I also had to forego one of my top dramas, I guess, or I guess it could have also been considered historic with Schindler's List, and then another Bill Murray comedy goes by the wayside with Groundhog Day.
No, I'm kicking myself for not getting that. So.
All right, so Amanda, that means you're back in the first place chair for 1994.
What genres do I have left?
I mean, we've only picked a few years so far, so you can't pick a romantic comedy, you can't pick a drama, you can't pick an animation, and you can't pick science fiction or fantasy.
I'm going to go with family friendly, The Flintstones. Live action Flintstones. That's something I didn't expect to hear.
Wow.
I love that movie.
Halle Berry's breakout performance, right? Yeah.
Bro.
I'm going to give you credit only because most of the good family-friendly films were already passed in previous years.
Man, it was that or Little Rascals or Angels in the Outfield.
Fair enough. All right, Dan.
For that year.
That means you get your choice of anything left in 1994.
Man, I'm debating between drama right now and action. I think I'm going to go with... It's kind of an obvious choice, but I feel like it's, according to IMDb, it's the greatest movie of all time. So how could I not choose it? So I'm going to go with I'm going to take my drama off the board, and I'm going to go with The Shawshank Redemption as my choice for 1994.
All right, can't argue with that. Like you said, it's IMDb's best film ever, as well as a lot of people's best film ever. So, man, okay. That's tough. It's going to be weird that, as far as animation in the 90s, that we've all three decided to leave Lion King off of the board, and it's not drafted by anybody. There's a couple other big-name films in 94. There's Forrest Gump. There's Pulp Fiction. Oh, man. And then I'm considering the one I'm about to say, and that doesn't seem right to list these other names and then not say them.
It's so difficult trying to fit into these genres that you have. I think that's the hardest part, because we could all pick really quality movies, but trying to pick one that fits in the categories we still need is the hard part.
Right. I really should pick Pulp Fiction, but there's another couple years that have so many good crime films and mobster films, which I think that would fit into at least. I'm not going to pick that, though. I'm going to make a ridiculous pick and kind of use this as a wasted year and get my action adventure film off of the board. And the way I'm going to do that, I guess, is to try to pick a film that I also think somewhat represents the 90s as a decade. And I'm going to go with Speed.
That's actually one I was considering, too, because I actually think Speed's quite a good action film, so...
Yeah, I think as far as the genre goes and as far as the decade goes, I think it's really representative of both. And I also have very little choices for action adventure along the way that I'm super proud of. So yeah, I'm going to go with Speed and take that off of the board, which means that it'll turn around then and be my pick again for 1995. And I said there's a couple other years out there that have a lot of choices for crime, police, mobster, gangster type films, and this is chock full of them. 1995 has a bunch, and it's the toughest part here is choosing, because a lot of people like Usual Suspects, Seven, Heat, Casino. I mean, these are all loved by a lot of people that like this genre, and I think they all fit into that, and I am going to actually go... Only because you already took Goodfellas, and I just have a soft spot for it, even though I definitely love Seven and Usual Suspects and Heat. I'm going to go with... Oh, maybe I shouldn't do that, but I have to. I'll go with Casino as my police/mobster film, crime film. So Casino is off the board, and that means, Amanda, you can pick anything else from 1995.
I really, really wanted to pick Seven as my crime...
Which you can do if you'd like.
But I'm worried I'm not going to get my period piece in. My historic.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Braveheart.
I thought that might happen. I actually was talking about all those crime films, and then I looked at my paper and saw Braveheart there. I'm like, wait a second, I have to pick Braveheart. But then I remembered I already had picked that genre. So that works out for you. Dan, can't pick Casino, can't pick Braveheart, but you can pick anything else from 1995.
Man, I'm not sure here where to go. I guess so. I need action, and I think this. You know what? I don't know if it's the best action film in the 90s, but it's part of one of the greatest franchises of all time, and part of maybe one of my favorite video games of all time during this time period. I'm going to go with GoldenEye and get my action off the board for my 1995 choice. So
GoldenEye, interesting.
It's on mine too.
All right, great choice for action. I think that's also very representative of the genre and the decade. All right, man.
95 has been the hardest year so far for me to pick because that's when my list starts just going
Bananas.
nuts, and I have so many choices.
Well, Dan, you get the wraparound pick then for 1996. So anything you want from 1996.
I'm going to go with a comedy here, I think, because I think after this, comedy gets a little harder for me. And I'm going to go with Happy Gilmore for my comedy.
That's a great choice. Great choice. Had it on my list as well. I'm starting to wonder what I'm doing with that genre. Because, like you said, it gets a little bit harder to pick as we go forward. So Happy Gilmore, great comedy pick. Also, like you said, very representative of the decade. So great pick there. I have to pick a horror film now because otherwise I will have to be like getting on the computer to try to figure out other horror films that are on the other 3 years. So there was a couple choices here, I believe. Because I'm pretty sure you could put probably like From Dusk Till Dawn as somewhat of a horror film.
Somewhat as a horror film.
Well, I don't know.
Have you seen that movie?
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go with, though, just the classic, the bring it back to this style of horror film, and that will be Scream. So I'm getting bad words mouthed to me from Amanda, but I am picking Scream. And if you want to blame someone, Amanda, blame Dan, because he took Silence of the Lambs.
I'm not going to blame anybody, because I have a ton more to choose from.
Yeah, I'm sure you have like 25 horror films you could pick.
That
So
right there is horror. What are my leftover categories?
You got comedy, action adventure, horror, or crime.
We're going to go with Mission Impossible.
All right. I thought that might come up as a possible action film for the decade.
I mean, I wanted to do Escape from L.A., but I mean, choices.
But choices. All right, that means your turn to go first in 1997. This is the year I probably had more trouble than any other year. So what are you taking off of the table for 1997? You have comedy, horror, or crime.
Comedy, horror, or crime.
Don't worry, I'll just insert crickets chirping for these couple minutes here.
You have to do some mad editing. Comedy, horror, or crime?
Yep.
I'm going to go with comedy, Austin Powers.
All right. Austin Powers is off of the list. Dan, I'm sure you already know, but you got romantic comedy, animation, and science fiction fantasy. Where are you going in 97?
I'm going to go science fiction, and I'm kind of debating between 3 films right here. But I'm going to go with one I think, I don't know. I know there's people who hate this movie, there's people who love it, but I think when you kind of
Fifth Element. I had to guess, I'm sorry.
What was it? I'm sorry.
I said The Fifth Element.
Well, actually, that's one of them. But
Okay,
the one I'm going to go with, actually, for science fiction is Starship Troopers.
Nice.
God, I love
Nice.
this. Is on my list too. I love that.
You know,
movie.
that is a film that I've not heard, in listening to podcasts over the last couple of years and hearing different people talk about different stuff, I don't think I've heard a single person say a bad thing about that film.
Dude, MPH is a total badass.
I'm just saying, like, it didn't get a lot of love, I feel like, back in the day. Not that I was paying real close attention to what movies got love back in 1997, but I feel like it didn't. But everybody has good things to say about that.
I liked it so much, I braved the second Starship Troopers movie, which was not as good as the first.
I think a lot of people at the time didn't realize it was supposed to be satirical and took it on face value. But I think in retrospect, people can kind of see, like, oh, I see, it's being self-aware and it's, kind of being critical of different things and whatnot. So I think people didn't really get that at first. So similar to like RoboCop, people thought it was like just a crazy action film, but it was meant to be satirical. So I think it's really great, a great film, and special effects even still hold up really well. Plus, Doogie Howser as a psychic that can read the minds of bugs. So
There you go. Oh man, now it's my turn, and I have comedy, romantic comedy, and drama. I don't know why I left some of these until the end. That was not smart on one of them. I had 10 movies written down for comedy, and 9 of them are off the board or the years have already passed. So And I don't have one for 97 that I can come up with. So that means I'm forced to go with either drama or romantic comedy. And there's two choices. I either go one direction or the other. Man, I've already shared my love of Life is Beautiful, so I'll stay away from that. So I either go drama with Good Will Hunting or romantic comedy with As Good as It Gets. I am going to go with As Good as It Gets as my romantic comedy because I'm not an expert in that genre.
Yes, you are.
I don't feel like I am, so. All right. So As Good as It Gets is the pick for me.
See, that's one I still have yet to see. It's one of my blind spots.
Oh, really? Interesting.
It's on my list, too.
So that means I go first for 1998. We only have 2 years left, so now I'm stuck with my only other comedy that's left on the board. And even though there's a bunch of good films that I'd like to pick from 98 because I think it was a great year in films, I have to go comedy here because I don't have one listed for 1999, so I will go with The Wedding Singer for 1998. Probably my 10th ranked comedy on the list, but I have to have one, so I will go with Wedding Singer for that one, which means that, Amanda, it is your turn.
So I have crime.
And horror.
All right, 98 is going to be crime. I'm going to go with American History X.
Nice.
That is one of those ones that I was talking about as far as a good year in film.
Yeah.
And, wow.
I feel like some of these, though, you're like, it's kind of just a last-ditch effort to fill that category, and you panic, and you're like, I'm going to say this stupid movie, and there's 20 other options here.
No, that's definitely one of the, that's probably one of the 4 or 5 that I was most considering for that year. So, Dan, you got romantic comedy and animation. Which one are you going with 98?
I can go with romantic comedy and go There's Something About Mary.
Okay.
I was actually going to go The Wedding Singer, but unfortunately someone took it. And I'm like, oh, comedy. I thought you'd go Something About Mary, which I guess is, debatably a romantic comedy.
I haven't seen it.
But, but what do you...
I actually haven't seen it.
You haven't seen The Wedding Singer?
No, I haven't seen There's Something About Mary.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I somehow just missed it and never saw it. So, direct hate mail to Optimus Solo.
See, I thought for comedy you would go with, like, Rushmore, maybe, but...
Well, the comedies on my list, which I all missed, because I had, like I talked about, I had the What About Bob and Groundhog Day, I had Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison, Maverick, I almost picked, Dumb and Dumber was kind of a small consideration, so Wedding Singer was the last one available, so I had to go with that.
I wanted The Big Lebowski as my comedy, but I panicked and picked Austin Powers.
Well, you have only yourself to blame for that one. So, Dan, you went first the first year. You get to go first the last year. So, 1999, you have to go animation. So, what are you doing?
There's actually quite a lot of animation in 1999. You have Princess Mononoke. You have South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. But I think the one I'm going to go with is The Iron Giant.
Iron Giant. I was wondering where you were going because I thought for sure when Lion King and Toy Story's years came by that you were going to pick one of those, and I forgot about Iron Giant. So great pick there at the end for your animation film.
Yeah, I figured animation had like 99 was like a lot of great choices, so I was keeping that one because I would be happy with any of those. So
right.
I went other directions for the other years.
Gotcha. All right, so that means I am left with drama. For 1999, I did not expect that to be the case. There's a few good dramas, though, in 99, and I got to decide, do I go with... Man. You guys have all picked drama, so I guess it doesn't matter if I say stuff. So I'm thinking between American Beauty, you got... I guess Green Mile could somewhat be considered a drama, but I think I'm going to go with... And I even double-checked because this is listed as a drama on multiple sites that I checked. I don't necessarily think of it first and foremost as a drama, but I'm going to go with Fight Club as my drama. And that's weird because I'm a drama fan, and that is not one that I would list at the top of, like, for strictly being drama. But I think it works, and could pick American Beauty, but I'm going to go with Fight Club for my drama for the last one. So that means, Amanda, you have to pick your horror film. You left it to the last year because you had so many choices, probably.
Yeah.
All right.
So I need you guys to answer me this. Bruce Willis or Kevin Bacon?
I say Bruce Willis.
Well, I know which film you're talking about if you're talking about Bruce Willis, but I don't know which one you're talking about.
You wouldn't, because this is too horror
I
advanced.
can't answer that question. You're the horror genius. I thought you were saying Kevin Bacon. I was going back to the only other horror that I was going to try to pass by from 1990, and I was going to try to pass Tremors as a horror film.
I also have Tremors on my list.
Well, all right, so what do you got?
I'm stuck between The Sixth Sense and A Stir of Echoes. And
I can't help you.
Creep me out. Super hardcore. Both of them did. Let's do The Sixth Sense, because I feel like that's got some more layers than The Stir of Echoes.
All right, and definitely iconic film for the decade. So that rounds up the list. We're going to go down and share what the results are here. Obviously, they will be as part of the poll on the website, and then we'll react a little bit to this. So, Dan,
I'm worried.
You have Goodfellas, Silence of the Lambs, Unforgiven. I mean, talk about starting off with three complete genius picks there. Sandlot, Shawshank Redemption, Goldeneye, Happy Gilmore, Starship Troopers, There's Something About Mary, and Iron Giant. How do you feel about your list?
Good. I think I'm a little weak with my action choice. That's when Goldeneye is not the. I think there's probably better choices, but I feel like it was a sacrifice to get some of the other ones. So I'm happy though.
All right.
I think it's good.
I think that's
a good group.
That is definitely, you got the who's of notable movies from the 90s, that's for sure. A lot of great, it seems like your team's full of like 5 number 1 picks. For my roster, I got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original live action, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Aladdin, Tombstone, Speed, Casino, Scream, As Good as It Gets, The Wedding Singer, and Fight Club.
I just feel like my list is total shite compared to your guys' now. I'm just not even happy.
I don't think so at all. I think you pulled away with some great picks, especially when you weren't even picking first, that I did not expect. There was definitely I'm somewhat happy with my list. I would have loved to get Silence of the Lambs, but Terminator 2 Judgment Day, that's probably one of the best science fiction films of the decade, so I'm fine with that. So I definitely wasn't expecting to go with The Wedding Singer for my comedy, but it is what it is. Amanda, your list is Pretty Woman, Beauty and the Beast, Bodyguard, Jurassic Park, Flintstones, Braveheart, Mission Impossible, Austin Powers, American History X, and The Sixth Sense. What do you feel about that?
I don't feel good about it, Dan.
Why do you say Dan?
This list is crushing it.
You got Braveheart and Jurassic Park, which are 2 of the biggest films of the entire decade. Beauty and the Beast is easily one of the best animated films. Pretty Woman is the iconic romantic comedy.
My comedy one, though, totally, I like, I whiskey throttled that. I don't...
All right, so we'll have to let the people decide who's got the best decade. Dan, what do you think these lists say about the decade overall? What was the strongest points in the 90s? Which genres did they do best, or what's kind of just your overall thought as strong as the decade was? Or
I mean, I think it was an awesome year for crime films, or awesome decade for crime films, because to me that was the one genre I felt like no matter what year I was going to get like a 5-star film within crime. So I kind of wanted to wait on that one, but it's like, yeah, Goodfellas, I can't pass that up. So action was, I think, a little bit more mixed for me. That was a harder genre to come out of. Like, I think, you have, I thought about The Matrix, but again, I'd rather go animated. So it went back and forth, but I feel like that was one genre that was a little bit weaker. In science fiction as a whole, I think there were some spots here and there that were better, but it's
definitely, I think the decades that came after it definitely started honing in more on the science fiction and more on the action. I didn't realize that, it did have like Con Air and Face Off and The Rock and some of that stuff, but nothing that just like jumps off at the page for you for action. Like, I don't
struggling. Agree with that at all. I think that it was such a pivotal time for me in my love of action movies. It was really hard for me to pick because there were some also that bled a little bit. Like, I love Total Recall plus Face Off. That's still kind of sci-fi. That's not a real thing. You can't take your face and put it on somebody else's face.
I'm not a Face Off
Judge Dredd, Really? See, I loved all that. Judge Dredd, Demolition Man. I think there was a ton of really
Yeah,
cool
I
stuff,
get
but I think
that.
there's a lot of bleeding.
Yeah, I think
too,
there's a
in
lot
other
of bleeding.
genres.
As far as like just a straight, what you think of like straight action or straight action adventure, I think it becomes a little bit harder.
I think what when it starts off so well with like Terminator and ends really well with Matrix. I think that like there's other ones in between that are good, but I think nothing like hits that level. Which I mean, well, then you have Speed. So I don't know. So
I just want to say Van Damme was cool in this time. So
I mean,
there's
he
a ton of stuff.
I mean, you do have sudden death. I mean, to be fair,
Sudden death,
and that
Hard
does
Target.
so far with the mullet and
Double Team with him and Wesley Snipes, or not Wesley Snipes.
Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman, like.
I feel like you're arguing against.
Dude, I had so much fun with all these movies. I think that it was a lighter time for film, and then it also kind of, it went as dark as it could for that time.
I do agree. Like the action itself was a little bit more like you said, lighter and a little bit more not as super serious as we look at like the Bourne films. They get a little bit more realistic and gritty. Where this it's like taking your face off and putting it on another person and and stuff like that. So I do agree that the action had a more coyness and loving it, like movies that were self-aware and willing to be a little bit more fun than some of the action films that came after in the next decade.
And I think horror really did an awesome job too. I had so many horror movies. It was really, really hard to pick. I wanted to pick Bram Stoker's Dracula. Even like Interview with the Vampire. I'm like, where do I put this? Do I put this on horror? Do I put this on drama? What do I do with this? There's just so much.
I had Silence of the Lambs, Scream, and then Tremors with a question mark on my list for horror. Obviously, one of the first things that people are going to do is they're going to berate us for which films don't make any of our lists. So just to kind of cap those, that we do recognize that they're good films. I just want looking at a couple from the decade that we did not pick, of course. Maybe some of the family-friendly ones like Home Alone, Homeward Bound, Mrs. Doubtfire. There's a bunch of others I'm sure that you guys had too. Which other ones were you considering for family-friendly? Any big notable ones?
Homeward Bound.
Dan, any more on your list for that genre?
I thought about Babe in there. I mean, we talked about some of the animated ones. It was really hard to pass up Lion King. I'm not gonna lie. But other the mid-year years, like there was like Bug's Life and Kiki's Delivery Service, but nothing quite.
Right.
So I felt like the other family-friendly films I debated on were like Mighty Ducks 2, but. Little Giants. There's a lot of those great like sports family films, like Little Big League and all that stuff. But I felt Sandlot was kind of head and shoulders above those.
For sure. That was definitely high on my list. If I hadn't gone Turtles that first round, I would have been looking at Sandlot a lot. No pun intended. We already talked about action adventure a lot. We mentioned a bunch of the comedies that we left off. As far as romantic comedies, I'm interested what other films you guys were possibly considering for the 90s. I didn't have a lot on my list for this one. I had Shakespeare in Love. I had 10 Things I Hate About You, You've Got Mail. I don't know. I was coming up a little short. I haven't seen some of the classics. So, Dan, what else were you considering for romantic comedy?
I thought about Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
What else? Clueless as well. I mean, I felt like I was stretching the romantic comedy thing a little bit.
What about you, Amanda? Anything else that you had high on your list for romantic comedy?
I also had Jerry Maguire and Clueless. Well, I'm trying to look here. Something About Mary. Let's see.
I had Chasing Amy as well, and Sleepless in Seattle.
Yeah, I was gonna say Sleepless in Seattle, and there's a couple other like While You Were Sleeping.
I mean, like what?
Practical Magic, just stretching that one there.
I was honestly really hoping in The Wedding Singer. That was like my go-to. I'm like, oh, no one will get that one. They'll be chosen by them.
Dan, I wasn't expecting to pick that. Trust me. I thought for sure I'd end up with What About Bob or Happy Gilmore or something like that. And it's obviously dramas. That's one of the most common genres that films go to. So there's going to be a ton of that. But don't hate us for not picking stuff like Schindler's List, Philadelphia, Good Will Hunting, American Beauty. I had A Few Good Men even kind of as a drama. I think we got some big ones, but obviously there's a billion dramas that any that were towards the top of your list that you just left off, Dan, or you didn't get to because of the years?
I thought about Barton Fink because almost every year there was a Coen Brothers film. I'm like, can I just go Coen Brothers almost?
That'd be funny. You could have almost for some directors. Amanda, any other dramas that you were?
I was thinking about like Simon Birch, American Beauty. Okay, you caught me after I already put my papers down.
I also thought about A Few Good Men.
Yeah,
it's a classic.
That's one of my favorite movies. So
that's kind of a classic '90s film for sure.
Yeah, I knocked off A Few Good Men, Malcolm X, and Reservoir Dogs because I went with Aladdin that year. So those were my other choices. Go ahead.
Also like Michael, What Dreams May Come, but they're also kind of like sci-fi, so I just kind of steered away from them. My Girl.
Yeah, I had My Girl on my list too. We already talked a lot about Crime Police. Obviously, '95 was a good year, so nobody ended up with Heat, Seven, or Usual Suspects, as well as Pulp Fiction. Doesn't make a list. I'm sure we'll get some flack for that.
They have to understand, trying to fill these categories based on these years, what year has what, makes it difficult.
Independence Day.
I really wanted to pick that.
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, I thought about waiting on War and Epic for that. Also for Crime, LA Confidential is really high there up for me, and that again, it's like considering you can choose the genre ones, and it's hard to wait on it because you don't know if that'll be available. So it's kind of like you kind of panic a little bit. It's like when you accidentally draft like defense in the third round. You're like, that was not a smart move.
Why do I have a kicker already?
Yeah.
Hence Austin Powers.
And then the last ones I was going to mention was science fiction, Men in Black, Armageddon, Matrix. We've already talked about a few times. So
I thought about Contact. That's like when I picked mine. That was one I considered, but I ended up with Starship Troopers.
All right, so I don't know if that was fun for anybody to listen to, but it was fun to try to come up with on our own. So you'll have to let us know if this is a game that should be retired immediately. If not, we obviously have a few other decades that we could easily tackle. Just to real quick get into what we've been doing recently before we close out the show. Dan, I know you haven't been watching a whole bunch of movies lately because you've been focusing your efforts in a different direction. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and why you're doing that?
Yeah, if you listen to Ultra Geek and if you checked out Geekcast Radio, you might notice that one thing we're looking to do is we're starting a Top 100 again, and we're looking at Top 100 TV shows. And with that, there's a lot of great TV shows I have yet to catch up with, so I've been trying to catch up with a bunch, and it's so much harder to catch up with TV than it is with movies because it's a little bit more of a commitment. But so I catch up with one of the biggest one does have a movie relation though, because we talked about there possibly being a Deadwood movie a few weeks ago, and we mentioned that no one really watched Deadwood, but I wanted to correct that, so I did. I watched the first episode. Hopefully we'll be catching up with more, and I gotta say I'm really looking forward to watching more of the show. It's just in the first episode, I was just super impressed with just, from beginning to end, just it felt like a classic Western. It looked amazing. The details and everything were fantastic. And the cast is phenomenal. I love seeing John Hawkes. A huge fan of him. Tim Lee Olyphant, as a fan of the show Justified, you kind of see him in this, and there's a lot of similarities there. So I can completely understand the desire to make a movie, continue this in movie-wise, because it, in many ways, felt like a movie. It could have been a movie, and so it was quite good. I would highly recommend it. Even if you don't have HBO, if you have Amazon Prime, it's actually available on there. I forget how many seasons there are, but if it continues going the way the first episode did, it's not like the first episode is off-the-wall action or it's like blow you away or anything like that. It's more so like, hey, this is, there's some good potential here. There's a lot of great pieces. So I was very impressed. So I catch that. Go ahead.
I've actually seen the first episode way back when. I think when it originally aired. I don't know where I was that allowed me to watch it, but I obviously didn't get the channel it was on. I didn't get HBO, and I didn't have any type of streaming service to do that. And it was kind of in a day and an age where that wasn't just so easily available for people to find in other ways. So I remember really liking the first episode and then never being able to watch anything else. I considered buying it on DVD just to catch up, but if it's on Amazon Prime, I might have to join you and catch up with that, because I remember being very intrigued by the first episode as well.
Yeah, I caught up with that. I watched the first episode of 6 Feet Under. I watched some Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and the biggest show I've been catching up with though is Parks and Rec, and I'm loving that. I'm a fan of The Office, and it's done by a lot of the same people,
right?
So I'm enjoying that a great deal.
Well, and if everybody else is interested or intrigued by more of this TV discussion, you guys are doing something pretty cool, Dan, as far as on Facebook and I believe on Twitter as well. But every day or every so often, you guys are putting 2 TV shows against each other and letting people sound off on what they think is better, etc. So I think that's something, if you guys want to continue the conversation, definitely check out the Geekcast Radio Facebook feed there, so you can chime in on all the different matchups that we're kind of doing to help us think about and start the discourse for this Top 100 project, because it's a lot of fun so far. I've liked the matchups, or the 2 that you put against each other in each day so far.
Yeah, we've had Simpsons versus South Park. We had Big Bang Theory versus Community. We've had Arrow versus Daredevil. So we're trying to kind of combine some that have some similarities for sure.
Right. It's been a lot of fun. We wanted to just touch on a couple 2015 films real quick, just to give our opinions on them. But before we do that, Amanda thought she needed to catch up with the Bond films of Daniel Craig by watching Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, and Skyfall, only to find out every single time we put one of the films in, she was repeatedly throughout the whole thing telling me that she'd already seen it. So she's apparently already seen all of them.
I like to see movies pretty intoxicated, and so I don't always remember I've seen them until I'm watching them, and then it all comes back to me, and I'm like, I remember everything.
So my only question about those...
I had not seen Casino Royale, but Quantum of Solace and Skyfall, apparently I've seen.
Okay, so my only question then, as we've watched all 3 of those, are you more or less excited for Spectre?
I'm more excited because I feel like the Daniel Craig Bond is the most realistic Bond.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's overly flashy. He's strict and classy, but also he is, super gritty, and he can really get down to business. It also shows him as a real person because he gets hurt, he gets shot, he struggles, and like one scene, I think in I can't remember if it's Quantum of Solace or Skyfall, when he goes to I think it was Skyfall, when he goes to take the motorcycle onto the train,
mm-hmm.
but he clips the guardrail instead and just flips over and falls onto the train. There's all kinds of instances like that where I feel like he's the most real and gritty Bond, and I'm really excited to see what Spectre has in store, because Christoph Waltz is amazing, and I think he's going to be an awesome Bond villain. I really didn't buy the relationship with Bond and Vesper, like Ava Green, and Ava Green really didn't wow me in this as much as I think probably at least DJ was completely wowed by her in this maybe. Maybe it's because I've seen her in so much over-the-top stuff, mm-hmm. that her in this more low-key, normal person role didn't do anything for me.
Fair enough. All right. We're running out of time, so I want to do this somewhat quickly, but give me a brief 15 to 30 seconds and a score without spoiling anything for Pan.
Pan, super disappointing. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. I think it was pretty visually striking. I like the way that, they made it kind of kid-friendly, except for that really bad dub moment. But I think that there was way too many kinks and problems in the story for me to really, really enjoy it. Love the origin story though of Peter and how he became what he is in the appearance.
I'm not. This movie is not directed towards me. First, I'm not the demographic. Second, I'm not a Peter Pan fan, so I don't really love that story to begin with, like everybody else. So it was going to take a lot for this movie to work for me.
I wouldn't say everybody else. You don't know that.
Well, anyways, it was going to take a lot for this to work for me, and it absolutely didn't. The only thing that I was interested in seeing in this film doesn't happen, and Garrett Hedlund playing a Texan a Texas version Indiana Jones Captain Hook. I just don't understand at all.
Yeah, he was
there was so much of a disconnect from that performance that this film didn't work for me. I enjoyed the first 15 or 20 minutes like a lot of other people did, so I guess I'll give it a 4 out of 10, but this movie was bad. Okay, quick 15, 20 seconds on Sicario.
Okay, well, my score for Sicario, I'm going to give that an 8 out of 10. I thought that a lot of the performances in Sicario, especially like Benicio del Toro, were really riveting. I think he is a beast. I want Benicio del Toro to adopt me and be one of my new daddies because I think he's so awesome. I think that Emily Blunt was a useful tool in this movie. I think she represented a belief from one way from Americans and how we're expected to act and how she kind of viewed everything, really isn't how the world works anymore. And I think that was
When you said 8 out of 10?
8 out of 10.
Right.
I think that it kind of it took me back, and I think it was pretty real.
I will agree with you. I'll give that one an 8 out of 10. And if Benicio del Toro is not nominated for some type of award somewhere for this role, then something's wrong with the world. Last film for today, 10 seconds in the score for The Martian.
The Martian, I'm going to give a 9 out of 10. I think this was one of the most satisfying films that I've seen this year. I really like the pace. I love the characters. I love the relationship between all the characters. Matt Damon was great. I think he was unexpectedly more funny than I thought he was going to be. And I really liked the outcome too.
All right, you're stealing my thunder. I'm going to give that one a 9 out of 10 as well. I love science fiction. I love Matt Damon. It all worked together, so 9 out of 10 for me. If you have a chance to go see Sicario or The Martian, I highly suggest doing that. I know you saw one other film that you want to quickly get in, so tell everybody what you thought of another horror film.
I saw Insidious 3. I've seen all the other ones. They all scared me. This one I'm going to give an 8 out of 10. Scared me to death. I actually had to stop this movie and come back at a different time to finish it. It scared me that bad. There's one bedroom scene that I'm pretty sure is going to stick with me for a long time. I still need Kevin and or the lights to sleep right now, so definitely see that if you're in the horror mood.
And I will pass. All right. Dan, anything else you wanted to highlight or mention before we move on to what's coming up in the next week?
I got nothing.
Hello? Okay. All right, then coming up for Blu-ray releases, if anybody has been waiting for their chance to watch some of the other 2015 films that were either earlier releases or small independent releases, this is a good week for you because there is a crap ton of stuff coming out on Tuesday available via Blu-ray or DVD. So just to go over some of the stuff from 2015 that you can watch, Jurassic World Combo Pack is coming out, Tomorrowland is coming out, you have Z for Zachariah coming out on discs, you have the San Andreas Combo Pack, Testament of Youth, Paper Towns. So there's a lot of stuff that is becoming available for you, as well as if you're wanting to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Back to the Future, there's actually a Complete Adventure Back to the Future set that, get this, has 2 hours of bonus materials, all 3 films, and the animated series included in that combo pack.
I didn't even know there was an animated
series.
If
you're a Back to the Future fan, it is Christmas for you on Tuesday. And then the only other thing that I want to mention real quick, because I cannot believe that there's something that's actually titled this, if you want, on Tuesday, you can actually go out and get a film called I Spit on Your Grave 3, Vengeance is Mine. I'm sorry, but I can't say that title without laughing.
He said it 4 or 5 times already in the past 2 days.
If you're spitting on someone's grave, how proud are you that vengeance is yours at that point? Like,
obviously you're alive and they're dead, so vengeance is all yours.
You can have that vengeance. I mean, it's right up there with the other one, Tales from the Crypt, Bordello of Blood, and The Exorcism of Molly Hartley Unrated Edition. So if you're a horror film, Amanda, I guess you can pick out
if I'm a horror film,
whole bunch of stuff.
I was going to wear.
You know, and there's also another Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. So you can get all kinds of stuff there. Dan, if you have to pick one thing to buy this week, what's it going to be?
Maybe Z for Zachariah. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. That is definitely the one I'd be buying. Amanda, are you buying Jurassic World to get another look at it? San Andreas, Tomorrowland, or are you joining us with Z for Zachariah?
Man.
Or Back to the Future?
I want to just round it out and do Z for Zachariah. I really enjoyed that movie.
All right. As far as theater, or I guess you could call it a wide release because we got that interesting one this week, Dan. But theater releases, we have Goosebumps, like we talked about, Bridge of Spies, and Crimson Peak, and then being released, apparently, I think it is this week that is going on Netflix, is Beasts of No Nation with Idris Elba. Dan, if you can only watch one of them, which one's it going to be? Although I guess Beasts of No Nation is no different because it's not going to be in theaters.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I gotta go with Spielberg, right? I'd go Bridge of Spies.
All right, Amanda, I don't even need to ask you. It's Crimson Peak.
Thank you.
All right, and I will go Bridge of Spies with Dan. We're all in alignment Dan and I are in alignment on everything so far. As far as some limited or video-on-demand releases that you guys might be interested in, like we talked about Experimenter, which just had the trailer coming out with Peter Sarsgaard, Winona Ryder, Jim Gaffigan, Kellen Lutz, so stay away from it, Dennis Haysbert. We have Truth, which is currently getting a 76% on Rotten Tomatoes with Cate Blanchett and Robert Redford. You have Meadowland with Olivia Wilde and Giovanni Ribisi and Luke Wilson. You have Room, which is getting rave reviews. It has 95% on Rotten Tomatoes with Brie Larson. You have a few documentaries. One, All Things Must Pass, a documentary directed by Colin Hanks. You have a documentary on the Chernobyl incident called The Russian Woodpecker, and a documentary on, I guess a roundabout way of saying genocide in general, but it kind of goes into more than that, Watchers of the Sky. For big Halloween fans, you have something called Tales of Halloween, which is actually 10 different stories put together, made by 11 different directors. And then for foreign films, you have The Assassin coming out. Dan, if you had to highlight one film that you're interested in out of that group, is there any?
Yeah, I've actually heard really great things about The Room, so that's one I really want to check out.
All right, Amanda, anything there that interests you?
I think Meadowland looks like it has a really great cast.
Yeah, it has very limited reviews. It does have 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, but not enough to actually count for anything yet. I'm interested in The Room just because of the buzz that it's been getting, probably, so I guess I would say that, although I did hear really great things about The Assassin as well. All right, so that does it for this week. Obviously, the question is easy this week, and it's who made the best decade ever for the 90s film decade. And then obviously stay on the lookout for the Tarantino wrap-up episode where we reveal the next director that we will be covering, as well as, like Dan said, the other stuff coming up on the Geekcast Radio Network. Pay attention to those TV battles and be on the lookout for more top 100 TV shows of all time information as we get closer to the point where we'll actually start revealing what those shows are. Thanks as always for tuning in to the Cinema Geeks this week. You can contact us in a lot of different ways, but the best thing to do is visit the actual website, geekcastradio.com, and find the episode post, comment there. We will definitely interact with you. Also visit the Facebook page by searching Geekcast Radio Network, where you can get those TV matchups as well as information on everything happening Geekcast Radio related. And then Twitter, the show name is @Cinema Geekcast. Dan, your Twitter is?
I am @Movie Revolt.
Amanda?
Hard Candy Mandy, Eyes Know Why.
And mine is @Optimus Solo. And that is it for us. Be sure to check in next week for another chance to listen to the Cinema Geeks.